Hey guys, and it's me and it's Pepper, and we're hoping that Pepper survives just long enough to get through this for the day. Pepper's having morning issues. I have morning issues all the time. I totally understand. There we go. I'm looking for all the buttons to bring up all the graphics, and I'm like, where are all my stupid graphics?
Well, I mean, yesterday I had oral surgery, so.
That's not good.
No, it's hopefully I know. I was telling someone, it was like, no, this is to fix a problem from like when I was a teenager. So
Most of my oral surgery is to fix problems from when I was a teenager, like the problems of me drinking way too much soda.
oh no, mine was they removed my braces, and the two teeth that had the holding rings for my braces like basically cracked my teeth.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
I swear you were gonna say they removed my brain. You started with brain, and I was like, brain. Maybe
You know what? If they removed my brain, would it be much different?
Well, there is sort of that. We are artists after all. I mean, it does take a little bit of lack of something there for us to stay at this post, you know?
Yeah.
There is that.
Yeah.
So I'm having an interesting discussion right now about somebody who wants to commission me to do work, but they're like, the original author is offering 10 pieces for $10. And I'm like, and he's trying to encourage me to offer the same deal for people. I'm like, it takes me an hour to draw each one of these pieces. There's no way.
Bare minimum cost of an illustrator just starting out is $25 an hour.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I usually charge $40 a piece because I can't ever tell whether it's going to take 1 or 2 hours. And I figure that's cheaper than a 2-hour rate.
Yeah.
And if I do manage to get it down to 1 hour, I get a little bit of a boost out of it. But yeah, it's the problem really is the original illustrator, I believe, has a bunch of pieces that he's got stored up that he, just sitting in his archive. Since it's a specific genre and he was the artist of the original genre pieces, I'd be willing to bet that he just has a bunch of random pieces, because he says if you're not going to put them on the internet, then you can have them for 10 for 10, which sounds like to me that he's not doing commission work. He's just giving you 10 pieces out of his library, which is way cool. But since it's not in my style, every piece is going to have to be handmade.
Yeah.
And so I'm not going to be able to just pull 10 pieces out of my library over here of 1,000 characters.
Yeah.
So I can't blame him, but he is going to actively undercut me if I'm trying to get into this area. So I love my friend for trying to get me in there, but I don't think I'm going to be able to compete. And that's kind of a bummer. So.
No,
oh, well.
I know the feeling very well.
Yeah, it's one of those things.
Yeah, I still have to respond. I saw an email this morning from someone that was like, contact me for work, but I guess some personal stuff had come up and he never got back to me. Yeah. So now I have to respond, and I haven't figured out, like, is it gonna be disappearing time again or not? So,
right.
But
I think that's one of those things. Last night we had Dave Baker on Geek Tank, and Dave Baker is an artist who is a comic artist, and he most recently has been doing the 7 of 9 Voyager comics for IDW. And so we had him on the show because we wanted to talk to him. Well, it turns out he's a massive Trekkie. So, of course, that we talked 10% of the show about what he did for Voyager and the rest of it about Star Trek. 2 Trekkies together, it never ends well. Or rather, it ends wonderfully. It just doesn't end well for people who are non-Trekkies.
Yeah.
There's that.
Well, I mean, it's kind of like when we start talking Star Trek and my husband in the background starts piping up.
Right? Well, Bill and I get along just fine.
Yeah.
We just sit there and just chat and chat.
Yeah.
We're happy as clams.
Yep.
So, but yeah, we were talking to him, and he was saying, there have been a number of times when an artist guild has tried to show up, and something for a union for artists. But the biggest problem is that artists don't make a lot of money, and so they don't want to pay union dues because they're making $5 whole.
Yeah.
And as long as they're making $5, and of course the whole point is that the union would make it so that they wouldn't make $5 whole, they'd make more than $5 whole.
Yeah.
But you have to kind of do the chicken and the egg thing. How do you get them to make more than $5 whole to pay the union dues so that they can make them pay more than $5 whole?
Well, first of all, there is a guild that is available. It's the Graphic Artists Guild. It's based out of Seattle.
It's a gag joke.
Yeah. They're actually not bad people.
Sure.
But once you're in there, you have a yearly due. And I believe it's like $75 or something like that.
I feel like the best thing we could possibly do is all of us work together to make it so that people don't take advantage of us. You know what I mean?
Right.
Support the fact that you can't ask somebody to work for $5.
Right.
Support the fact that, even us beginning illustrators are worth at least $25 an hour. And normalize the fact that if you want your character drawn, for your character sheet, $40 is what you're going to fork out, or $50, and that's okay. That's so that when you make it and you're like, I love my character, in your brain, you're already sort of setting up I should probably be about 5 or 6 games in with this character before I decide to contact an illustrator to draw up the character. And because, that's the same thing you do with a car. You don't say, well, I need a car. I've got $5. Nobody does that. We all sit there and go, okay, saving up the money for the car, and we got to normalize that. We got to normalize the fact that we need to make a living too,
Yeah. An artist I follow and I occasionally do talk to, he's based out of North Carolina. He recently did this whole thing with this company. Now, this company paid him every step of the way, every single part of the process, the pencils, the inks, the colors, everything has to be approved of in a certain method. And this is the reason why artists basically need to be paid. Because when you have professional jobs where you're paid over where you're actually worth, and I've had this experience, you need to show every step that you're making to prove that you're working.
Right.
Being an artist is not a normal job.
No, it's not.
It's not a 9-to-5 thing. It's not like something where you're like, oh, hey, I'm going to be an artist today. No, it is not like that. A working artist has to adhere to some very strict guidelines.
Right.
And you get paid to follow those. But he got a whole bunch of people basically saying that he doesn't want, they never wanted him to be on the brand that he was working for. But the brand was the one that hired him.
Right.
If the brand hired him, that means that you just don't want him with the brand.
Oh, right. Right.
And the brand is happy with his work because they posted his work on their site, and the partnership's there. Right.
Well, and as much as I admire this particular artist for what he's saying here, he's messing with the system.
Well, not really, because he does support the fact of people need to be paid, and he does make posts occasionally where like someone tried to shaft him, and he's like, "Well, I have a no tolerance for people who don't want to pay up front, especially when I don't know them."
Right.
And a lot of artists lately have been doing that. If you do not pay up front, I am not working. And that is like probably one thing that as a younger artist some people put up with, but then that's when you get your hardened artists, which basically is like, no, you shouldn't do that.
Right.
You should basically be asking, hey, I want payment up front. If you don't give me payment or give me like
At least half or something.
payment, then this is not going to work.
Right.
Know?
Well, and that's one of those top tens for me. Anytime anybody approaches me and says, hey, I can't pay you, but I'll give you exposure. I have a screen cap from Oregon Trail that says you have died of exposure. And I just post that back. I don't even talk to them. I just, because I'm so over working for exposure. I spent my 20s working for exposure.
Yeah.
And the truth of the matter is, I've spent so much time working at night and working during the day that I'm actually not getting, it's taken me way too long to get better as an artist. I'm just now finally able to buckle down, improve my skills and stuff like that, as opposed to just scrambling to get by, because I only have about an hour and 10 minutes before I've got to go do something else, some other thing that people require me to do while I'm working 45 or 50 hours a week to pay the bills, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's like, that's what I did in my 20s. And now I look back and I kind of regret it, because it's like, well, gosh, I wish I had been able to spend more time, back then. I really wish I'd been able to spend more time on my skill. I don't feel like I'm that skilled necessarily for somebody who's got almost 30 years of drawing under their belt.
Mm-hmm.
I certainly don't look like I've got 30 years of drawing under my belt. And it's because I spent 20 of those 30 years scrambling to survive, make enough money to buy the ramen. So, good morning, Donald. Welcome to the show.
Good morning.
Good morning, Brent.
Oh, we got
Brent and Donald. So,
yeah, no, I think a whole bunch of artists have talked about this problem that artists have, probably to death, right? By now, everyone realizes by now, hey, you need to pay artists, and
we also need to normalize that.
We need to normalize
$50 an illustration and just normalize that, and that's the bottom. That's the floor.
Yeah,
Unfortunately,
the bottom is $25 an hour. So something
but it's probably going to take about 2 hours to finish a full color thing. And really, the truth is, if you normalize $25, then people are going to expect you to do 3 hours worth of work for $25, and we're back to that. Wait, that's $5 an hour. Sorry. Yeah. Here, Pepper, I want you to do a full color, two-page spread with 12 characters, and I'm going to pay you $25 for it. I mean, really, no.
Yeah.
That's actually one of the reasons why I'll do a page rate,
Yeah.
Because page rates then, well, okay, if you really want 2 pages of comic involving 2 cats chasing each other through your house, that's fine. My page rate's $75 to $100 per page. So plan for $200. Just plan for it, because that's my page rate. But I'll do anything in that page, and I'll even bring it all the way to color.
I mean, I've done events where they're like, "Oh, so what's your rate for an event?" And I'm like, "Well, I've never really done like events by like grand, but what are we talking? How many people? Blah blah blah." And I get the number, and I just turned to my husband. Here's the facts. He goes $600. Okay. And that's it. Like, basically, I go by what he tells me to say, and the last event that was canceled, unfortunately, due to COVID, was $600 for 2 hours of work.
Yeah. That's a perfectly reasonable rate.
Oh, well, I mean, I had to quickly draw out a whole bunch of like little tiny comics for their corporate event.
Which works.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nothing wrong with that.
It's just pen and ink.
But yeah. So Brent and Donald, we're sitting here talking about I was approached for character drawings, and when I told them my rate, which is traditionally $40 for a character, they were shocked. And they're like, that's expensive. I'm like, it takes me like 2 hours to do one of these things. I mean, you guys have all been here. And the best part about this, though, is nobody who watches my show has any problem with this. I mean, everybody here has done a wonderful job with, nobody bulks and stuff like that. So we're only talking about people who are new to but yeah, he was actually like directing me to this thread where the original artist was in there saying, yeah, I'll do 10 for 10, or, and it's like, that's $1 a picture.
Yeah,
There's no way.
Yeah, that's usually like that's usually like you said earlier. It's usually someone who has backup of a whole bunch of images,
right,
that he can just pull from, and no one's purchased them. And
that's what I think's happened. This was the originator of the system that they're talking about. This is the original artist who drew all the illustrations in the system, the role-playing system's books.
Yeah.
I'm sure he just has a box that's just full of characters he never used.
Well, and
he's trying to pulls out 10 of them and gives them to you for $10.
And the other theory of him actually doing it so that it basically he can prove that no one else can do the work that he can do.
Right. Which I mimicked his style pretty well, but since it's not my style, I had to mimic it. And because of that, I don't have any backlog.
Yeah. The other thing that you also stated, which I don't know if Donald or Brent heard this or not, you also stated that he said, if these images aren't going online, there is a big factor. With
they don't go online, then he has to make an original.
Yeah, like I actually worked. I'm working with a company right now. Art side has died down, so I'm trying to get back into doing other things. But when we're in full art production, they basically they pay me, and they tell me I can post it anywhere I want.
Mm-hmm.
Now their payment is partial cash right now, and then partial once things are sold.
Right.
So there's a difference. It's like artists, as an artist, you have to set up so that you have passive income coming in from the things that you do at times.
Right.
So, and that's what I did with this company. The thing is with them, they want me to share. They want me to put the images out there. They want me to have like these things out there for people to get excited about.
Right.
So a lot of people don't follow me very much. So like they don't see them. So it's very hard to get the images out there for them. But they did an artist spotlight where they took some of my images and put it out there. And they're legally allowed to do that so that they can do.
Donald's talking about the same thing I was just talking about, which is one of the reasons why, he was saying he knew he knows an incredibly skilled artist, but he can't draw anymore because he's got too much work to do. He's got to pay his bills and stuff, and that's where I was in my 20s and part of my 30s. And part of the reason that it's so frustrating is I feel like now, because of dual crazy events, one, I got laid off a long time ago and couldn't get another job. We were in that recession. Yeah. And two, I feel like we were, or two, now I'm kind of watching my kid to make sure my kid doesn't, explode. And because of those two things, I now have the ability to sit here and draw. And now I'm finally starting to hammer away at my skill set and starting to really work at it. So
Yeah. I think we just need to come up with a commission style gambit where it's like kind of like on the metrics of comic book artists have, just like for normalizing art, just like in general.
yeah,
like,
I mean, when we look at like Brent and Donald, they're used to us. They're acclimated to the world. They're acclimated to our style. They, and stuff like that. But it's when I meet new people who are shocked they cost that much. And the worst part is, like, when I'm at conventions, I'll draw characters on site. Well, that's true too. The cost of living is so high that it affects the work. And it is. I mean, really, $40. Brent had said that's not really that expensive, and he's right. $40 is actually really cheap. And I mean, I still have to do, I still have to do 100 of those to pay the bills every month. And I don't get 100 commissions every month. I've had 2 this month, 3.
Yeah. I think I actually make more sometimes making paint than I do actually making drawings at this point.
Right? Well, you do make good paint, though. There is that.
Yeah.
I'm pretty fond of my paint. Although the gold disappeared when the paint started to dry. I was very sad.
What do you mean?
The gold fleck's not there anymore. I don't know what happened to it. I don't know if it blew off or if it went away. I don't know.
Wait, on the skin tone or
on the skin tone?
Did you move it in a light to see? Because when I tested it, it didn't blow off.
Maybe a cat got on it. We'll have to see. He walks on my artwork now, so maybe he swept something over it and scraped it off by accident or something.
Oh, well, let me know if that continues, because
you were indeed one of them, Brent. One of my commissions this week or this month. So yeah, I'll let you know. It's totally cool. It was. We'll take a look at it. Maybe I just need to. Maybe I was tired. I don't know. I was like, "Ooh, the gold's gone," so I was kind of bummed about it. But
because I checked, because that's what the one thing I do check on. Yeah, blame the cat.
Blame the cat.
I mean, if you see like little gold flecks on the bottom of the cat, I mean, there you go. That's what you see.
That's what happened.
But it's not supposed to do that. Like, I tested it. I did rub tests so that I knew it stuck to the paper.
Well, that's good. That's good. I mean, and a lot of this, a lot of this is prompted because I was talking to Dave Baker last night, and we were talking about the idea of a union for artists, and he licked it. George licks all kinds of weird stuff. I don't even know what George is into. I don't know where George is either. He's usually over here pestering me. But I mean, a lot of this was brought about because I was thinking about this in combination with these two things. But I was talking to Dave last night about this and thinking a lot about the idea of some kind of union. You know what I mean? Because he was saying so many comic artists, they will work for pennies, that it's flooded the market at the bottom end. And what they've got now is they've got these structures that exist in comic companies now. Which are designed to find young talent and strip mine them and throw them out to the wolves, and it's like they've got entire divisions in their company now. And he's like, not all of them. Certain comic companies are just fine, but certain comic companies go out and strip mine these artists. And I was thinking about it. I was like, this is like an extension of the belief that artists are just hobbyists.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's that extension of that thought process, which started really a long time ago, like the 1800s. You know, when the industrial era started up. You know,
Yeah.
Artists don't need to pull a lever or push a button or put a thing together on a construction line, and so they're useless effectively. You know.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is like I think my very first comic job that I did for like I think it was comic strips. I did like back when I was still in college the first time.
Right.
They paid me $5 a strip.
I mean,
yeah, I'm not joking. Like they
no, I know.
paid me
I was
$5
just
a
thinking,
strip.
even when so Springs is probably the fastest I can go doing a spring strip. That's my comic strip. I've been doing it since 2000.
Yeah.
Right. I know the characters like the
4.0
back
strip.
of my hand. It's the fastest I can go. And it still takes me 35 minutes or 40 minutes to do a strip.
Yeah.
I mean, from loading up my template to rolling it out the door, I can, if I'm really cooking, I can bring that down to 30 minutes. But it's still, that's 2 strips an hour. So that's $2.50 a strip that you could at best get.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you have to remember, it's like they did that, and I got the money. I was super excited because I'm still in college, still learning, and it's
Right.
like,
And
hey,
you still have a roof over your head while you're in college.
yeah. Well, no, I lived in dorms, so
Right.
like
You still got a roof over your head. The college is paying, or you're paying your college dues.
yeah.
But you've got food, you've got shelter. That's
No, I didn't. I didn't say I had food. I didn't say I had anything
you
else.
have ramen, and you know it because it was college.
Yes. I worked a crappy job. And then I moved to a better job in the same place in
But I
college.
mean, the point is, like when I started drawing, I lived at home.
Yeah.
Obviously, I was 16, 15, or whatever, 14. So of course I lived at home. And I could spend and devote my time to learning my craft and yada yada yada. But then at 18, I had to get a job. Couldn't just stay home. And then I was working all day and then coming home exhausted or whatever. So I'd draw for an hour or something. So that's what I was saying is like through my 20s, an hour a night or 2 hours a night or whatever. But it was this minimal amount of ability to put back in because I have to. Then I went to college, and that was great. I went to college twice and got a lot of time to just sit there and craft.
Yeah.
That was wonderful, but college only lasts so long.
It does, unfortunately.
So I think the biggest thing that helped me was being able to put out the Tamerlan comics, because those Tamerlan comics were pages after pages after pages.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to go through all of the design work on it and the construction and all the pieces parts to get there. And that brought my craft to a higher standard.
Yeah.
So I really feel like those were much better. But then, now we're at okay. So over the last 30 years, I've probably only dedicated 10 years to this craft. But I feel like I'm approaching my 10,000 hours. They say it takes 10,000 hours to master a craft. And I feel like I'm at least getting to that level. So,
yeah,
it's a thing.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Anyway, yeah, I believe that, although it's, yeah, so I'm looking at the private messages over here and it's like, not 100% sure because, it's like looking at things on this particular thing. I don't know how to deal with that one. So that's all right. The guy who I'm dealing with is cool. So I just don't know how to deal with the artist on that thread. That's one that I'm like, that's hard. That's
It,
and
it,
not in a negative way. I just don't know how to operate in that zone. You know what I mean? I don't know how to operate there. I can't undercut him.
yeah, he's trying to make it in a way where they can't live without him. And
Which is fine.
I will
Totally
totally
cool with
back that.
I mean, I mean, that it's his business and it's his stuff, and I'm good with that.
Yeah,
There's nothing wrong with that.
I don't blame him.
Yeah, it's a dog eat dog out there. I can't really blame him either.
Yeah, it's
and it's okay.
Yeah.
But and by the way, Stephen, to my dear friend out there, this is not a critique of you, my friend. It is not a critique of you. This is a combination of thinking about what we've been talking about in combination with what I talked about last night with Dave Baker. So I'm back to the why don't we have a union?
Well, and here's the deal. Going back to what you were saying, like a lot of artists beginning don't have money for a guild or a union or anything like that. There are graphic artist guilds. One big one is based out of Seattle. They're great. They have you become a guild member. They send you a book of helping you to create your own contracts.
There you go.
That is basically like something that artists need starting out. You can refer to that, but you do need to update that yearly, and you need to get one every year to see if there's any changes in language for artwork for commission.
Right. Well, I mean, as time goes on, I'm going to have to charge more than $40 for a character.
Right.
As time goes on, because that obviously is going to be the way things work.
Yeah.
And it's fun, and yeah, there's no money and not many contacts as a young artist. Well, that's one of the reasons why we started Red Team Go, Quasar Art Collective, those things like that. That's the whole point. Take in the young artists, transmit the information to them. When I was with Red Team Go, before Red Team Go, I had never tabled.
Yeah.
So I had never been, I didn't even know how to do it. It was like, and I hadn't even really thought of it. Right. Then I joined Red Team Go, and they're like, no, it's not that difficult. But hey, don't just go in there with prints. You're going to need something cheaper than your prints to sell and stuff like that. So, come up with little things, widgets, put them on the table, and stuff like that. I didn't even think about that. Get a tablecloth, make your table stand out. Oh, I hadn't thought about that either,
Yeah, I mean, you've seen my tables set up at conventions. So.
Yeah. I mean, and all of that had to be learned. I wouldn't have known that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have known that at all.
Yeah, like me, we put a picnic table thing over our table. We theme it like it's basically here's summer coming at you.
Right.
I
have all of my stuff now with space themes and lights and blinkies and spaceships because that's what I do.
I mean, Bill,
I need to table next to each other sometime. That'd be fun.
Bill wants to set up at a certain point. He wants to set up where basically it's an interactive, where people can literally walk into
the booth,
in a booth, and have this spooky, scary forest with little tiny LEDs on rotators.
Yeah,
that seem like fireflies in the night in the forest, and then people can take pictures of right there. He wanted that set up, and then I was like, well, why don't we get a cosplayer to dress up as a camp counselor, and just basically we pay for a shirt for them to wear, and then they get to keep, and yada yada yada. But I'll be realistic, we would have to pay the cosplayer to be at our booth.
Right. But
they're not at that.
One of the things I wanted to do was make because we got time. We got nobody's going anywhere. Make a life-size standee of one of my characters and just put get a selfie with one of the characters and have people come over and click, one of the characters, and I thought about doing that. That'd be fun.
If I did that, I would want to do it with Aunt Gal, our character, Aunt Gal. Like,
But that's what I'm saying is, you do
Yeah.
that, and that causes interaction. It causes people to want to come over and figure out what the heck you're doing. And they get a selfie with your brand branded over it. So what did you think of the ships in the movie Inner Spring? And the ships in Marvel movie that it goes subatomic. Are you talking about inner space? Because
are you talking about the shipping of characters? Like, I'm sorry, I'm a little confused.
You ship characters, inner space. I hate autocorrect. I love you, man. I get it. I totally get it. Yeah, I mean, the inner space ships were kind of cute. I guess that depends because I'm picky. We're talking about starship design. So this this week I finally finalized my hero ship, so that and so I finally have my Seagull class for the Kitty Wake, so she can we can start like putting her out there and doing stuff with her, which is great. I do all of my stuff, of course, in 3D for the backgrounds and for sets and things like that. That way I don't have to do backgrounds. I'm so cheap. And that way I don't have to mess with the backgrounds.
I mean, I just hurt myself by smiling. Getting back to like the whole like young artist thing that we don't really rely on in America is background artists.
Yeah.
Like that's like a true art form right there.
Yeah, the thing about ships inside the body that I like is that they have to be aerodynamic, or in this case, fluid dynamic, because that is kind of cool. So you always end up with, I mean, really practically speaking, spaceships are just squares or maybe spheres, because you don't have to worry about aerodynamics in space. And so
I've always figured of spaceships like a sideways water droplet.
Yeah.
It's like a cone attached to
that's fluid dynamic or whatever. And it doesn't really need to be. The Borg make a good example of this. A Borg is just a cube.
Well, I mean, with that race, I mean, let's be realistic. They don't travel by normal means of anyone else.
Right.
They use a different type of technology that makes them able to use and utilize tunnels through space where they don't really need to put much effort into it being aerodynamic or fluid dynamic.
Right.
Like,
Brent is trying to get me to send him the STL so I can print it. Or so he can print it. So, Brent's talking about that. He's trying to get me to, which I will happily do, but right now the design for the Kitty Wake is so minimal because I don't put a lot into the 3D model. I put a lot more into the textures around the model. So like it doesn't have windows, it doesn't have a docking door, it doesn't have any real greebles or whatever. The Borg use spheres as well.
Yeah. No, that is true. Most people understand only the cubes, unfortunately.
Yep. The tactical cubes and things like that. So we really what I wanted to talk to you about was I wanted to kind of right now you and I were talking about the fact that we're kind of in a lull. Right now we're kind of cycling because we're both working on things. Like I keep working on bits and pieces of the backstory, which I've been releasing on Patreon. I'm sorry?
Our goals weren't changing, folks.
Yeah, our goals weren't changing. I still have this one, which is marked 9/18.
Yeah.
So it's been a month and a half since we've even gotten back to a goal list.
Well, in my life didn't really help the matter because I had to some weeks I couldn't really meet up. Some weeks could. Things finally slowed down.
And there's certainly no complaint or problem there at all. I mean, that's my thought though, was what if we this time round decided to do a month goal,
Okay.
something like check in to see where we want it to be by the end of November.
Oh, that works.
Right, because that'll help us, because I feel like we're right now in larger goal territory instead of short goal territory. I feel like we're both in large goal territory.
Yeah.
And so I'm pulling out a pen. So, so my thought is, where should we want to be at 11:30 on this one? You know, where do we want to be on that one? So let's take
Launching a Kickstarter.
You're going to launch a Kickstarter, huh? That's a big one.
Might as well.
You're like, I got nothing better to
No, I don't.
do. I want to actually get to the point where I'm starting pages. My goal has been to start writing the comic, and I mean, like actually putting pages down by January 1, 2021, because I have been building the universe, and I know that if I don't put an end to it, I'll just keep building a universe forever.
Yeah.
So I'm going to see if I can't, because this gives me some slide room. You know, if we hit 11 or 11:30 and I haven't put pages down, then I can slide it to 12:31, which, by the way, we started doing this thing together in December of last year. So we're almost at 1 year's worth of cycle of this.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying that because I was noticing that showing up on my memories thing.
Yeah. No, this morning I actually got a memory thing for showing the ladder system that I built for Fiona the squirrel.
Right.
The squirrel that got trapped in my patio because I live underground, so like my patio is like walk out and then there's a wall
right
in front
of it. So they'll drop down into that pit.
Yeah, and then they don't have a way to get back up. And so what Fiona has been doing since then has been coming constantly up to my patio, and she's been waiting patiently when I do have things to put out there for her to eat. And she's actually gotten to the point where I can actually feed her by hand.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's weird. We've been doing this for a year, and I think we've accomplished a lot. But like, I think we need to start doing a lot more than we have been. Especially like I feel like I haven't held up my end of the bargain on a lot of things, and I need to get that feeling back. So,
well, and we have to give ourselves a little bit of a break. COVID has not been fun to anybody. And I think that all of us are getting a little depressed. I know I'm getting antsy. I had a real rough week last week. I mean, just, I don't know what's going on, but like Monday and Tuesday of this week, I just wanted to go back to bed and just stay in bed. You know what I mean? And I was like, wow, that's the first time any kind of depression symptoms have smacked me in the head. I'm not usually depressive. It's just not sort of my thing. So I'm not saying that it's anybody's thing. But you know, I don't usually suffer from it. So I was shocked a little bit, but I think we've been at this now for 7 months. And I think finally I had too much. Like Tuesday, I'm like, I'm not going to do my show today.
Yeah, I mean, I stopped. Like, I was going full bore. I was doing a whole bunch of YouTube stuff, and then all of a sudden, I just stopped.
Yeah.
And
I'm
it's
probably
like
not.
I haven't really felt the urge to go back because like everyone's doing stuff on YouTube. But
Right.
then I'm like, uh, I do if I actually can make it to Friday. I love doing the show on Friday, and it's just like now I'm just trying to kind of figure out like where I want to do it. Like if I want to continue doing it. But at the same time, I'm like, what can I really show? Like people, they're like, I haven't figured out on how to niche myself on YouTube. Like
Right.
I'm just like another artist on YouTube. Like that doesn't.
And that's sort of a thing, though. It's like I'm just another artist out there too, and that's
Yeah.
okay. I'm okay with that. You know what I mean? Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, we've got Brent who's reminding me that we worked on time yesterday because like all the time systems are different in Bellatrix Rising. So we spent the entire show calculating out time, and it was so funny. But it allowed us to identify what time it was in an absolute sort of sense.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, what I was saying yesterday was one of the alien races that's involved in my series is extra universal. So they're outside the universe. They can tell you, they tell our heroes exactly how old the universe is. So
Yeah.
they reset their clock to Big Bang, and the time system now tells you what year it is relative to the Big Bang, you know. And so we had to go through all this calculation. And by the way, Brent, my wife is like, no, nobody's going to do that. So she's totally on the. They're going to have to come up with their own time on each planet. And I'm like, no, I don't know if that'll work like we think it would. And she's like, nope, nobody's going to accept a 36-hour day.
Well, let me reiterate. In Star Trek, they use star dates, but like their dates are only used by the Federation.
Yeah,
You never hear them say dates on a planet
right. Well, and
unless
that's
they've been there for a couple of days.
yeah. I mean, it's one of those things that like NASA uses the term soul
Mm-hmm.
to indicate a day on a local planet. So if you have been on Mars for 20 sols, that's 20 Martian days, not 20 Earth days.
Right.
If you've been on Venus for 20 sols, that's a long time because that's like 25 years.
Yeah.
Because Venus's rotation screwed up. But it's like so the relative there indicates that kind of thing. And I'm wondering whether there wouldn't be a soul or a function that would be like a soul, where it's relative to the planet. I'll see you in 2 sols. That'll be Wednesday. Even though Wednesday is not 2 sols from now. You
Yeah.
know, that would be that kind of thing. So I think that there would be some kind of localized language that you would have, which we'll have to come up with. Yeah, Donald's saying that COVID depression is real, and he's got it too, and all of us are just suffering, and it's brutal. It's really brutal.
Yeah.
I've got a really nice office. I'm very happy with my office, but frankly, I'm here all the time.
Yeah. I mean,
Starting to eat at me,
and then during this time, also outside of art, me and Bill have been going through the process of setting up to become adoptive parents.
Right. You guys are at least though have an interesting thing that you're working towards,
Yeah,
and that's so cool.
yeah, it does hit me sometimes. Like, wait, should we be doing this now? And then it's like, wait, no, we should be doing this now. It's one of those weird things. It's this weird paradigm type deal that you want to just complete it, but there's like part of you that are like, okay, wait, like maybe we should like think about how this is going to be. Our last class, we actually met a couple who were placed with a child, and they still have to take the courses because that's required when you
It's a state requirement. I wish
and
we got those.
and you know, it was an interesting class. It made you think. Uh, what it also is doing is it's entailing, like, it's kind of curbing on how I think about story writing, in fact, or story creation, or basically just in general of how to do comics in a way. Some of these courses are like the last one that we did was transracial and transcultural um, background related. So basically, like, if you are a family that, like, say you go into an adoption and then all of a sudden you get a child that's not only from a different race in a different culture than you now have to incorporate their race, their culture into yours in a way where it doesn't basically make it seem derogatory or superficial, but in fact actually give them all the same type of points and same type of dealings when they're growing up, like as if they were being raised in that culture and in that racial background.
Right.
Um,
And I feel like that's very similar to like whenever I have my adopted kid from Japan over here.
mhm.
I mean, she's Japanese.
Yeah,
It's like that's straight up. So, but I mean, you know, there are a lot of things in our household culture that are that is very Japanese since we lived there.
yeah,
But on the same token, she's got to move towards being American. You
yeah,
know, she does. There are things that she fits into the culture very well. She hugs people,
yeah.
but only when she's here. Hugging is not a thing you do in Japan.
No,
Here and she'll hug people, and we're okay with that.
yeah, I think what was it? I've actually been told that if you hug someone outright in Japan, they know that you did not grow up there.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It
Even
is
if you're
absolutely an
Japanese,
American thing to do.
yeah, even if you're Japanese, like
Mhm.
they're like, no, you did not grow up here.
Right. And you know, at first I was totally okay with her not hugging and things like that, but then she's trying to integrate over here, and I'm like, well, if you're going to integrate, you've got to do all the things, you know.
Mhm.
You can't be because if you don't hug people or at least shake hands or touch or the things that we all do, you look standoffish and distant. And that's okay if that's what you're trying to convey. But if you're trying to convey, hey, let's work together, I want to know you, and that kind of stuff, you're going to have to extend further than what the Japanese tend to do.
Yeah.
And so, you know,
Well,
because she's like, why is it people read me as standoffish? And I'm like, because you're Japanese. It's just nothing we can do about that. Unless you want to, like, because she's like, I don't want to be read as standoffish. Well, I get that. You know, I get that. But you're going to have to, you're going to have to start being less standoffish, more out there if you want to, you'll have to, not be Japanese.
yeah.
And it means that. I mean,
I,
that's part of having a kid under your roof who's a different culture.
I mean, it's in like me and Bill, like when we were originally talking about it, it was like we learned our culture through food. So clearly that's what we'll try to do the most is at least like have that. But also at the same time, like I have to remember I have some really good friends who have already said like they will help get all of those things
Yeah.
that we need in order for them to have like a childhood like they were raised in their own culture and stuff like that. But also at the same time, I have friends who like are like straight up like, no, you can't use me like that. And I was like, huh? And they're like, we'll be there for you. You're still our friend. We'll be there for your child, but we don't want to be that role.
That's totally fair.
And that's fine too. And it's like you have to kind of see where everyone's comfort level is. You know,
Right.
it is, you know, it's one of those things of like I'm sitting here talking about it, and it was like there are times where you'll have friends who like completely will back you, you know, and help you do what you need to do, but it's just in that class, it was like it brought a lot of that, like, okay, wait, like, no, this person said this, and then like it just got me thinking of how many people were willing to help, and be a community for a child that we don't even know who they are yet. So, um,
And you'll find all these people who want to help when you're a parent and really shouldn't.
yeah, that is not the same thing what I'm talking about, but I
Uh,
already
I-
they already have a
There
yeah.
are sure are a lot of people who are willing to offer up advice.
Oh, good lord. So we actually had a whole entire class about what to expect at the hospital as an adoptive parent.
Yeah.
Um, we found out like the horror story. Like there are people who work in hospitals that are completely against abortion, folks.
Yeah.
So not abortion, adoption.
Adoption. Because
Um,
that's important. Because we've got
yeah.
anti-abortion people and anti-adoption people. So it's like, what do you just beam the kids out? What are you supposed to do?
Well, no, what it is it's like that well-meaning nurse that basically tries to get the mother to see the child, even though she's requested not to see the child. Or it's the well-meaning, it's the nurse who basically comes to the adoptive parents saying the mother wants to see the child, even though the mother never asked.
Gotcha.
It's like one of those things of it's kind of like it's expect to be treated very rudely by people.
I never thought about that. I mean,
Yeah.
but I mean, because I mean, we had to think about the possibility of aborting our child, and we had to go through that procedure because you never know. Anything could happen, while the child's developing,
Mhm.
might still be viable, but the child has no brain, or might still be viable, but the child has no heart, or, you know what I mean? And so we had to have the inevitable options of what are we going to do at certain steps.
Yeah.
We luckily did not have any of those. And other than my child being a complete goofball, he's absolutely fine.
Health
He is a screwball.
um but yeah, like there's like a whole bunch of things, like there's a whole like factorization that we have to go through, and
I just never really I never thought about the idea that there would be people who are anti-adoption. And
yeah,
now you mention it, I totally can see it. I mean,
yeah.
I can totally see it. I think it's ridiculous, but I can totally see it, and that makes some sense. And
Well, in a lot of it, it's like
Hmm.
it's basically very like be prepared to be treated like with very insensitive language. Um, yeah, yeah, Brent. I mean,
I was gonna say, I
that's what
happen
you
to
get as
know, Brent,
kids.
your daughter's also a goofball.
I mean, I think every single child, like, I mean, as a teenager, I watch my younger siblings, I watch my younger cousins. I think all children are goofballs.
Yep,
Like, they
they
have
are.
to be once
Mine's
they
an
become,
adorable goofball, but he is definitely a goofball.
yeah. I mean, they don't lose the goofballness until like they're adults and they are hardened by having to pay bills.
Right? Which actually is kind of sad because to some degree, even though I get like long treatise on how certain aspects of Minecraft are, short of that, it really will be sad when my kid is old enough that he's like, I don't play video games, Dad. I just work all the time. I'll be
Yeah,
like, aw.
yeah,
That's me. Aw.
yeah,
Because you don't want to hear that. You want your kid to be like happy and fluffy, and it's going to be so sad.
yeah.
So, I mean,
Let's get back to art.
let's get back to art. We've gone off into depression land.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead. Oh, it's time for a quick break. I'm going to go ahead and see if I can't lay down some pages. If nothing else, I've been talking about the idea of. So the big breakthrough that just happened for me, by the way, was I have always had 3D models as part of my comic books, but my rule has always been that as much as possible, I build the assets. So I build the sets, I build the ships, so that at no point in time can I say, oh, well, this is somebody else's stuff. Even when I was building Star Trek, I built the Tamerlan, and I built I have this Federation construction set, which is effectively just bits and pieces of a standard starship, so I can just swap them out and build different ships, and it was great. I've even gotten a couple of commissions because people are like, can you do a tri view of this type of ship? And I'm like, sure. And I just assemble the pieces and then take pictures of it in different views and instant tri view. But I pride myself on that. But the problem, of course, is that the process that I used to use a program called Animate Or with an 8 in the middle of it to build the objects. And then I'd use a program called UV Mapper to unwrap it so I could make the texture maps for it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was back in Windows 2000. And so Animator has stopped working, and none of these programs are sustainable. So I was trying to use Blender and learning how to use Blender because I figure, Blender is going to continue to be upgraded from now on. So as long as I can use Blender, I don't make complex objects. I just make basic objects. So I should be able to get to a stage where I can just throw together a couple of walls and a computer console and poof, I've got a set. But then I spent like 3 days or 4 days in a row trying to figure out how to UV unwrap in Blender. And I just couldn't get it to work. I followed the online tutorials. I followed the instructions. It says, click this button and click this, and you should unwrap it over here in the left corner. And I click and click and click, and nothing happens. And I'm like, so obviously there's you click and click and click, and then some other location it unwraps it, and it's just waiting for me to find it. And it was just obvious to the people who did the tutorials, and it's not obvious to me, which is generally what happens. But I found my old UV mapper. I found a copy of it because it's just an exe. It doesn't even need to be installed. It just exists.
Yeah.
I found my old UV mapper in a backup folder somewhere, and I was like, well, I don't know, maybe. And I double clicked it, and it ran right here on Windows, whatever this is.
Yeah.
10, Windows 10. I've forgotten what it was called. Right here on Windows 10, it was just running. And I was like, okay. So that's when I took the Kitty Wake model, which I built, I save it as an OBJ so that I can load it into Daz Studio.
Mm-hmm.
I took that Kitty Wake model and it unwrapped it. I had to spend like 3 episodes of Lost in Space to do it because I had to keep moving polygons around because it's not the world's best unwrapper. So it doesn't understand it real well. So it pretty much just sits it there, and then you have to like pull it all apart and stretch it out and everything. But that's fine. I did, and I got a pretty good result. That's a major breakthrough for me. I can now start building sets, which I couldn't do before because all I could do was just build the object, but I couldn't get a texture map onto it.
Right.
And a lot of the new the problem we've got is I'm using a pretty old technology to do this, which is UV mapping. A lot of new stuff now is into procedurals, so it doesn't actually, you don't take an object like this and pull all the polygons out of it. Instead, you wrap it in, plastic number 4, and then you put a label on here and a label on there, and, the labels stick. Well, that's not the way I do my work. All of my stuff has to look like a drawing. And so I have to UV unwrap. And that's becoming the way of the dodo. Nobody UV unwraps anymore. We use procedurals on everything. It makes it look much more realistic. And I'm like, I'm not doing realistic. I'm doing comic book.
I mean, every single person I know that does 3D art, like, they're not using texture maps. They're just coloring in they're just adding color to stuff. And it's like,
right, procedural.
Okay, procedure.
Everybody understands the procedurals, and that's great, but I need UV unwrap. And there's something in Blender, and I just can't.
But you have very smooth lines for your ships.
That's because I unwrapped everything,
No. I mean, just in modeling in general, you have smooth lines for your ships. Like they're supposed to be very smooth.
Oh yeah.
It's like the glass is supposed to be looking like almost as if it just blended in with the hull.
Yeah.
So, like for you, it's understandable that you're going through this process.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it's kind of,
More private chats.
yeah, I was like, okay, it's all good. So, but I'm fascinated by this whole thing. But anyway, being able to use UV Mapper, TLDR, UV Mapper makes it so that oh, Donald lost internet. Well, welcome back, Donald. UV Mapper makes it so much easier for me to finish sets and designs. Now I can build. I actually was kind of having fun the other day. I took the Kitty Wake and I started putting the deck plans in it. And at some point, I think I'm going to render a cutaway of the Kitty Wake so you can see all the decks inside it and everything like that. Because the bridge is not up here on the nose. The bridge is in the center core. That forward part of the nose is actually the pilot house.
I never actually understood why you put the bridge like right at the tipping point of the ships.
Yeah, I know.
Like it's like the most vulnerable part.
It is. It's the part that hits everything.
Yeah, like why would you do that? Like,
right.
It's
so,
like if you're in a ship and you're like all of a sudden you're heading towards an asteroid field and you're right there.
Right.
But then you have all this technology to do readings and pick up where things are at. Like, wouldn't you would rather just use the instruments to pick up what's coming towards you and not use a visual?
I mean, like I said, I put on the Kitty Wake, there's a pilot house up front with steering controls.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea is that you send your pilot up there when you're in a docking situation, like inside the docking bay.
Yeah.
And that's where it's important for the pilot to be able to go, okay, a little forward, a little to the left, a little to the right. That makes some sense, but it's a pilot, right? That's not the captain and all of your command crew. They're sitting in the center of the Kitty Wake, in the core of the ship, with all of their sensor arrays around them and a full screen 360-degree display.
Mm.
The Kitty Wake actually has 2 decks to its bridge. So there's actually an overlook. So here's where the captain is on this bottom deck, but there's this overlook where the science teams or tactical teams or anything like that can sit there and overlook out over the dome that's the bridge.
Mm.
Yeah. So, and they've got spiral staircases on either side.
I mean, honestly, I'm kind of hoping that someday someone makes a spacing. Now, this is not about you, per se, but like makes a spaceship, but then it's a spaceship that they found from like this race of beings that have been dead for a very, very long time, and it's like the only spaceship left of theirs, and it's completely 100% one living organ.
Yeah.
Like one
living ships. I have those in Bellatrix Rising's universe, but they're the bad guys. Because they're called the Wyrn. Wyrn. Wyrn.
Well, like I'm not saying that they have to be bad. Like I think that this would be.
They have to be bad in my story.
Yeah.
They have to be bad in general.
Yeah. I mean, the ships. I view the ships like Pokemon. They actually don't do bad things unless they're told to do bad things.
The Wyrn do bad things. But the Wyrn have a reason for doing bad things, which is also one of my critical story points.
So how about you save that for people when they're reading it? Say later this month.
Right. Well, the Wyrn don't show up for a long time. Wasn't there one? Yes, Tin Man. Yeah. Tin Man that's actually the episode, and it's what was it? Gomtu was the name of the ship.
Yeah, that's what was it? He's the Enterprise on Enterprise.
Yes,
a living ship.
Yeah, we had one of those on Enterprise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just
Flying around is in some large stomach. Be careful not to be digested.
well, okay, so like here's what I mean. It's like it's an organism that its whole entire thing is to be a ship.
Right.
But like and it knows it's designated to be a ship. So take like if you've ever watched Steven Universe.
Right.
The crystal gems when they're born, like when a gem is born, basically they know who they are, what their purpose is, what they're designated for, and their job. And that's what I'm talking about. Like this is a life form that basically was created specifically to be a spaceship.
Right.
And it would be different than the one that you're talking about for your villain character.
Yeah, no. Yeah, like I have a race called the Volmar, and the Volmar live in asteroids. So they're vacuum raced. They move. Farscape. That's who I was.
Yeah, that's like I mean I
That's
didn't
who I
think
was thinking was
Farscape
Farscape.
that much though. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, the ship was living, and the pilot was the pilot of the ship and stuff.
Yeah.
Lex. Yeah, there were a few. Well, B5 had the shadow.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's not to say that I mean, yes, it's totally a good idea. And there is in the world of my comic, we definitely have those. Although in this instance, these are vessels to carry specifically humans, Jacine, and the other air breathers or liquid breathers in the universe. So,
I mean,
a certain amount of that kind of going on. Myra, that was the name. Myra.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not like I don't want like a physical manifestation of the ship's mind like Andromeda did.
Oh. Mind. I thought you said mime. I was just,
mind. Yeah, sorry, it's just my accent.
I know, it's all good.
With the fact that
it had nothing to do with your accent. I think that had everything to do with just a lousy connection. The internet's.
Yeah. But then I have to like remember like this is also like something I've been wanting to see since I saw a Nickelodeon show with Jewel Staten in it, where she and a bunch of other kids were thrown into a ship, and then it was launched from port, and they bonded. They basically were physically bonded as a crew to the ship, so their former teachers couldn't take control to go back. And they were lost in space, essentially, and they were trying to get back. And Jewel Staten's character was from Saturn, and she could do like this sonic screeching thing because she was from Saturn. And she had everyone said that she had an imaginary friend, and that imaginary friend basically said, "No, we can see one another because our brain waves are like linked, but we're in two different dimensions." And Jewel Staten was written off the show, and then she was replaced by her imaginary friend because they basically switched places.
That's actually kind of clever.
Yeah,
that's pretty clever. I mean, that's like Doctor Who level clever.
Yeah, and then at another point, like she gets cut off from being able to communicate with Jewel Staten's character because they go through like this thing where it's like an ionic storm cloud in space, and they get stuck there. And then once they get out of it, it basically lingers for like many episodes after before she's able to come back.
Right. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, it was weird because I liked it. I like that was like the one. Like it was like a Star Trek for kids.
Right.
It pretty much was, but the ship that they had on it was living, like I was saying, and it bonded the crew. The ship chose the captain. Ship chose the like. Basically, all the roles were designated by the ship.
I've often thought, with the Wyrn being living ships, it would be kind of fun though to see if somebody could raise a baby Wyrn to not be evil. That kind of story. So what you're talking about is the ships aren't evil. It's the culture that makes them evil. So I've thought about that as a story arc.
I like Don's suggestion right there. Like that is actually an awesome thing. Like I would love to see kids kind of commanding the ship in those cases. So that for me, it's always fun to see.
Well, and as a kid, that was cool.
Yeah.
It's like as a kid, that was nifty.
Yeah.
So we liked that. That was kind of neat. So yeah, so back to art. We've once again wandered off into science fiction because we are who we are, and that's just the nature of things.
Yeah.
Back to art. There was something else I was going to talk about. We're setting up long range goals. I intend to try to finish what I call the house set. The story of Bellatrix Rising takes place on the Kitty Wake, but the Kitty Wake is a dispatch ship, so she usually sits in dock and just holds until she's needed for something. Most of the time, they live in the Polaris, which is that huge flower ship that the jump ship. And so I need to make specifically what does Chang's house look like. So, because that's what I want to do. If I'm going to put down pages, that's where I really want to be, is start there with one of the things that was happening in Tamerlane was they had the galley, which was a specific room I had designed inside the Tamerlane that was different than other destroyers. But this galley was there, and they all could get into the galley and chat and just, And so I've moved that structure into Bellatrix Rising. But instead of in the galley, they always go over to the skipper's house and they cook dinner and sit around and have dinner and talk. And that's where I can have access to my characters' like personal lives and stuff like that. So you're not just stuck with them all the time, just hammering away at story plots, It gives some access to them. So I need to finish that set, which is what we're going to do over the next week or so. Finish the set of her house. Because I think it'd be kind of cool. I also think that the houses that live inside a spaceship would be really interesting and different. You don't really have to worry about hurricanes taking out your house. You don't have to worry about, and it's probably prefab to some degree. You know what I mean? But I think it'd be kind of cool. I also think it'd probably be relatively small. I mean, I don't think it'd be huge. Probably just, because they're captain's quarters, right? So it's effectively her main quarters. So she'd have, storage and maybe an office, and then a main room and a bedroom and, a bathroom and a kitchen. And so kind of deciding what would these houses look like? What's the sort of design? I kind of like the idea of them having a slanted roof with like raked glass that kind of goes up the side. So there's like glass on either side. So I'm going to be building that. It should be fun. So hopefully next week when we get together, I will be doing interior exterior painting with you of these houses. So we can just sit over there on the desk and you can paint something and I'll paint my renders of this house, and that'll give it even more of a comfy feel. And I can practice painting. Yeah, like VIP personal quarters.
I like when he said that, the first thing that popped in my mind would be like if someone lived in a completely VR house. So like you open the doors open and you walk up to a path and like you're like in like some English countryside and the house is just like this small English cottage, and then you go in and it's like this is very much the person.
Yeah.
Then you go into like someone who doesn't have like those types of quarters, and it's like you go in and it's like, oh, this is pretty standard.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that. That'd be fun. So it's all good. So yeah, that's where I'm gonna try to do over the next week. I have a couple of commissions on plates, so going to try to clear the commissions out on Monday and Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
I've got one for Steven, if he's still with me. I don't know. He commented once over here, but I haven't seen him since. I've got that one. It's going to be on Tuesday, and Monday I'm going to be finishing the Tempest, which is a Reliant changed model. The Reliant, the original Reliant, which here, where is it? The original Reliant from Star Trek II, the Miranda class, was originally upside down in design, and they put the drawings on the table, and Roddenberry saw it this way and said, "Oh, I like that." And so they had to go through, and even though they had this hull piece here and everything like that, they had to rotate the warp missiles. Well, somebody has commissioned me to actually do a tri view of it as it originally was, with the warp missiles up on top. So I'm doing that as a commission on Monday. So that's going to be fun. I love drawing starships, so I will draw starships until the cows come home. That makes me totally happy. And Star Trek, I know like the back of my hand. Hey, where'd that come from? So, any Star Trek starship, and I'm just in heaven there. So that's going to be a fun one on Monday. So I'm doing that.
Yeah.
So there's that. Then Tuesday, I've got a commission for Steven, if he's still there. He's not, but I'll be doing that. And then Wednesday and Thursday, that's when I'm hoping I'll be working on her quarters and building those in. I might actually start building it this weekend. I have to kind of think out the space. What's the space look like?
Yeah.
So
I think this week coming up, I'm probably going to do a lot of planning because I've made that comment about starting a Kickstarter.
Yeah. That means you've committed yourself, whether you like it or not.
Yeah, I know, right? So yeah, I have to figure out if it's going to just be an art book, if it's going to be some type of weird thing where it's like a comic that I've been working on that needs to get out. Yeah, that sort of deal. And then figure it out from there.
Right.
Yeah. But I just need to get to work. So
don't we all?
Yeah. Also, at the same time, the only thing that could hiccup my plans at this point is if someone chooses us for an adoptive placement. That's pretty much it.
Right, which we're kind of hoping for. I mean,
which is a good thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing.
Right? We're hoping for that.
Yeah, I would rather have it happen when I'm at the beginning stages of certain things and
not have to try to figure out how you're going to continue on whenever you've got a kid now.
Yeah, some people are like, oh, just soldier on. I'm like, yeah, no, I have a lot of other factors to think about.
Well, that's where that's my problem, of course, is that I try to soldier on all I can do what I can try, but a lot of times it's not that easy.
Well,
so there's that.
Yeah. Oh, and
kids take up a lot of effort.
Yeah.
I'm sketching a home right now. I had this idea for the house, so I'm like, while I see it in my head, might as well sketch it down.
It's like I've been having a story in my head like play out like for the past like 4 days. So I think today I'm going to take some time to actually write out what I've been seeing for the past 4 days. Hopefully it goes somewhere, but basically I already started the process of it. Let's see.
I've given her a little loft. Isn't that nice?
Yeah. Yeah, I already started it, so like I just need to finish writing through what's been playing out. And of course, since it's in the horror genre, it's
So when I was in Japan, I lived in a place called a Leo Palace, which was not, in fact, a palace at all. I think it was 12 square meters. Yeah, maybe 14 square meters. Needless to say, not very big at all.
No, I was about to say that that's
It was
not
tiny.
very big.
Um,
Like
and my
one room, maybe a bathroom. And
yeah, it was a living room which was really narrow, which had a bed in it, but the bed could be folded out so that you couldn't see it. Um, and then a hallway which had a bathroom and a shower. They were separate, and a little teeny kitchenette on one side. And then there wasn't anything past the kitchenette because that was where the stairs to the upstairs Leo Palace was. But yeah, and I actually kind of liked it. It was kind of fun. Um, my wife was living in one in a different city, and it had a little loft, and I liked the little loft. It was kind of cool. The design of that one was very angular, so it had like a roof that was tilted, and so she had a loft, and that was kind of nifty because at least then you could open the window at the loft and open the window downstairs and get airflow. Mine had just the door on the other end. So the only way to get airflow is to open the door. But if you open the door, then bugs would get in. And I hated bugs. So um, a spaceship loft is truly a loft. And that's the dad joke for the day.
very aloof.
Should have been here when we were making dragon jokes. It was a thing. So
Dad dragon jokes?
yes, they were really dad. They were very, very dad.
It's all right. It's all right.
So, okay, well, I think we have pretty much gotten to a good, solid point here.
Yep.
And I'm not
I
sure.
don't mind ending now if you want, because
That's what I was thinking was we might just end 30 minutes early and go to lunch early.
yeah.
Call it a day.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. That was my phone.
They're
That
calling
was
to see
my
if you voted yet.
No, it'd be my mother.
Calling to see if you voted yet. Captain is a lofty position. It is. He's really milking this.
Yeah, no, my mom's like, I didn't get the thing with your video, and I'm like, huh? Like, what do you mean you didn't get the thing? So now I have to send the video link to my mom.
Yeah, okay, well, your mom.
Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, that's
So,
a thing.
all right.
Okay, well, it was awesome talking to you, Pepper. Thank you.
Sorry for being all over the place.
I hate to say it, that's kind of par for the course with our show, but that's par for the course with our show.
Yeah, when we
And
don't.
I cannot stay on topic if we try. No, I have a new tag right here, so we clearly have made goals.
I've written out somewhat of a timeline here.
Good. I have a sketch for a place, so there's that.
Bye, Don.
So, bye, Donald. Bye, Brent, wherever you are. Bye, Hastings. I saw you. You were here for
Bye, everyone, because I don't know
the whole
who's
thing. And bye, Steven, if you're still there. And we will talk to you guys. I'll be back on Monday. Like I said, I'll be working on The Tempest on Monday. And on Tuesday, we'll be working on a character for Steven. So that'll work. Until then, I will see you all later. And keep your eyes on the stars. Bye, Pepper.
Bye.